Teithio dros ei llwybrau a thaim o'i hyd. Tir oedd ein dewinoedd ar gan yn un o'r gwynt yr
Hello and welcome to the June episode of the Snowdonia National Park Authority podcast. I'm Etta Trumper, the Volunteer and Wellbeing Officer for the National Park, and I'll be your host for today. In this episode, we'll be having some interesting discussions about our wellbeing. At the time of recording this podcast, it is World Wellbeing Week, which brings awareness to the many aspects of how we can promote better wellbeing. One of our purposes here in Snowdonia is to foster the social and economic well-being of our communities. We're very fortunate that Eryri is a place that people can come to relax, to unwind, to feel at ease in a safe space where we can feel connected to nature. Our guest for this episode is Davy Greenough, a mindfulness practitioner who guides our monthly guided mindful walks. We'll also be talking to Nik from 1085 Adventures in Berggellet and Abby from the Carneddau Landscape Partnership Project. But firstly, we'll take you on a taste on what a mindful walk is like in the company of Davy Greenough and Jess John, the Cultural Heritage Officer.
So we are walking today in Eryri, a beautiful part of Snowdonia National Park in the south of the national park, and we're going up past a very well-known estate called Gorsagethol, which is kind of an ancient seat in Meirionydd and with ancestors to the Nanais and the Vaughans and lots of families that are very well known in history. Before going up to Caergydines, talking a little bit about giants and fairy tales, some archaeological sites up here that are really, really interesting, before going round and having a sit down by Llanyrddin, talking a little bit about how lakes are important in our chwedlau, in our folk stories, how they're important in our culture and language, and before heading back down to Pontfadog, and then finishing once again in Gorsagethol. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. The sun is shining. I reckon it's about 20 degrees and feels like 40. And there's some lovely company. We should have a good day.
Hi, so my name's Davy Greenough and today we're in Caergydines in Eryri, and I'm a mindfulness teacher and a guided mindfulness walk leader. And our day today is going to involve walking mainly in silence in this beautiful part of North Wales, and we're going to be leaving talking behind for a while, and we're going to just be homing into our other senses, smell and listening and feeling the contact on the floor as we're walking and the air on our skin. We're just going to connect with nature and the openness and the spaciousness around us, and we're just going to have a nice day mindfully walking with nature and trying to keep ourselves in the present moment and watching when our minds go off into our daily planning and thinking, and bring ourselves back gently to the present moment and into the beautiful surroundings. Have you ever seen anything in your life more wonderful than the way the sun every evening, relaxed and easy, floats towards the horizon and into the clouds of the hills or the rumpled sea and is gone, and how it slides again out of the blackness every morning on the other side of the world like a red flower? Streaming upwards on its heavenly oils, say on a morning in early summer, at its perfect imperial distance, and have you ever felt, for anything, such wild love? Do you think there is anywhere, in any language, a word billowing enough for the pleasure that fills you, as the sun reaches out, as it warms you, as you stand there empty-handed? Or have you too turned from this world? Or have you too gone crazy for the power, for things?
So this is Craig Greenough. You can kind of see it. It looks a little bit like a stone city on the top of this little hill here. And this is where Maria, the giantess, lived. She used to holiday on the Moelfre mountain, and as she'd stride down, she'd come to Craig Greenough to live. However, so that's the story part of it, but it tells us a lot about what it used to be. So anything with word castell or dinas, caer or carnedd in it, gives you a hint that once upon a time someone was living there. We translate dinas today as a city and castell as a castle, but actually what it means is kind of dwellings in kind of landscapes, like far off landscapes. Usually it's a place of, if you see it on a map or you know of it, it's a place of refuge or shelter usually. And then when there's stories connected with giants or giantesses in the landscape, they're usually linked to very, very old stories, and sometimes the original versions that we see, they're not giants at all, they're just people. Rita Gawr is a good example of just being a bloke. But I don't think he collected beards, but there we are. So because when you do really, really early history, or especially early medieval history, all we have, because we're an oral culture, I suppose, is we don't have the manuscripts that many other cultures have. We do have these oral traditions and these oral stories that give us hints of where people were in the landscape.
So, where we are at the moment in the hills, good opportunity to practice the mountain practice. So, first of all, if we just come back to feeling our feet on the floor or our buttocks on the chair, on the floor, I should say, just contact on the ground, and the air on your skin one more time, and just arriving back, and just noticing where we are, how we're feeling, the spaciousness around us. Just seeing if it's possible now to visualise in your mind's eye a mountain. So it could be any of the mountains around us, the hills around us, or it could be one particular mountain that comes to mind for you. And just picturing it there and noticing the shape of the mountain, the colour of the mountain, and the base, and how the base of the mountain is coming up from the earth, and the summit. And just bringing to mind now how things change on the mountain in the seasons. In the winter, could be snow on the top, ice. Colours quite brown, quite faded colours. Different animals, different types of birds. And move into the spring, different colours, smells. Certain wildlife appearing. In the autumn, the orange and the browns. Maybe in the heather, all the leaves changing colours. different temperatures. And all the while the mountain sits and doesn't move, it's connected, it's permanent. Everything around the mountain and on the mountain is changing, but the mountain itself is completely connected. Sat there for thousands and thousands of years. And also, sometimes the weather on the mountain could be like today, sunny, gentle breeze, warm, birds singing, insects buzzing, the smell of the plants. All the while the mountain just sits. The winter comes along again. 100-mile-an-hour winds battering the mountain. Torrential rain, snow, ice. Storms coming from the Irish Sea, battering the mountain. All the while, the mountain is connected, sits permanent. Seasons come and go, the weather comes and goes. See now if it's possible for us to morph ourselves into being the mountain. And just seeing our base, our connection, our mindfulness as the base of the mountain. And all the stuff that goes on in our everyday lives, we can see that as the weather. Things come, things go. Good stuff, bad stuff. Things in between. Stormy weather, calm weather, cold, choppy. All the while, we can still sit here. We can connect with our mindfulness, with our connection to the earth, with our awareness, and realising that that's always here for us.
So we've finished the walk. As predicted, it was beautiful with lovely scenery. Felt very much like you were in nature. And we've just finished coming over Pont Fadog now and heading towards Gorsagedol. Thank you very much, Davy, for bringing a bit of mindful walking into our walk. Usually I do guided walks, but I talk all the way around. We'll find out a bit more about Davy's work with mindfulness later on with Etta.
Okay, Davy, well, it's nice to see you again after a lovely walk today in Ardudwy. Thank you so much for guiding the walk and guiding the mindfulness for us today. So can you tell me a little bit about what mindfulness is?
Thanks, Etta. Yeah, it was a great day. Really enjoyed it, and fantastic weather as well. Beautiful place, good company as well. It was a great day. Really enjoyed it. It's not the easiest thing in the world to describe to people, but one of the ways that people do describe mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment on purpose without judgment. So I'll say that again because it's one of them where it sort of disappears. So there's a few descriptions, but it's paying attention to the present moment on purpose but without judgment. So it's just basically being about being aware of the experience as it is now in this present moment, and just being with whatever is there, whether it be good, bad or neutral. and just sitting with whatever happens to be going on at that particular time, but giving it your full attention without trying to block it or change it in any way. Sounds very simple, but can take quite a lot of practice before you actually get going with it. But once you do, you certainly get the benefits.
Yeah, so mindfulness is a practice, isn't it? And like with anything, the more you practice, the easier it gets, really.
Definitely, yeah. It's a described as a practice for that reason. You don't ever really get to a point where you can stop practicing. It's something that you just do forevermore. I think what happens is you, to use a word that John Kabat-Zinn uses in mindfulness, you cultivate your mindfulness and your awareness by having a fairly disciplined practice. So let's say you decide to practice meditation, say 10 minutes a day every morning, and maybe say 10 or 15 minutes walking meditation as well. Then within probably, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks, I think you notice quite a lot of difference. And most people I've spoken to who've done similar courses over the years, they seem to see a difference within a few weeks, just in their sort of general everyday awareness, really, and concentration levels as well. So yeah, it's something that it's definitely something that I would recommend to anybody to give it a go, because it's made a massive difference in my life.
That's great. Thank you, Davy. And how can practicing this outdoors benefit someone more as opposed to practicing indoors?
Yeah, I think the two things go nicely together, because once you're outside, you're connecting with nature. You're in a healthy environment in the fresh air, and also I think the other thing is that it helps you to feel a little bit more spacious, and you feel a bit more open when you're outside. And I think sometimes people become quite closed, and when you have a lot of problems going on, you sort of become into quite a narrow world. So I think once you get outside into the mountains or onto the beach or whatever it is you choose to go for a walk, I think being outside, being in the open air, does help you to remember to keep things open and spacious, and not get too closed in with things.
Lovely. So my next question is actually quite a personal question, because wellness is something that's quite unique to each individual. So this week we're celebrating Wellness Week. I'd like to ask you, how do you prioritise your wellness?
I think with me, my sort of routine, if you like, is that I wake up in the morning, make a cup of coffee, and the first thing that I do is a few minutes meditation. So sit down at the table and do 5 or 6 minutes meditation, sometimes 10 or 15 minutes if I've got a bit more time. And then I move on from the meditation then and try to do about 15 to 20 minutes movement as well. So yoga, stretching type meditation. That sets me up for the day then, really. If I have time in the mornings, which I normally do now, I'll take the dogs out for a walk early in the morning after the meditation. And that, again, is a great way of feeling your feet on the floor, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the air on your skin, and just connecting with nature and your surroundings. And I think once I've done that part of my day, then I find that the rest of my day flows a lot better. So, I do try to make the time to put some practice in most days. And then when I come up against the usual, stresses and strains of the day with work and whatever else is going on, then I feel like I've got that sort of in the tank then, and I can sort of fall back on it when needed. So I sort of imagine my mindfulness as like a test tube, and the test tube's quite full in the morning. So I've got something to work back on when things get a bit difficult. So yeah, that's how I look at it, really.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for sharing that. And you feel like sometimes when you need a little top up, you go out into nature and connect with your senses and what's around you. So do you feel, for you, is there a link between nature and well-being?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, going outside into nature and feeling the fresh air and being out in the mountains or in the hills or just anywhere where it's a place of natural beauty, I think there's a natural feeling of wellness, even for people that have no experience at all of mindfulness. You know, I think sometimes just going out for a walk is such a beneficial thing, just to hear the birds singing. And I think that it's a good place just to be away from your problems and your issues, and just going out and enjoying the simple but beautiful things that we have on our doorstep, really.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have such a beautiful place on our doorstep that we can explore. Eryri, in Eryri we have a term, in Welsh it's lle ienaid cael llonydd. In English it translates to a place for a soul to find peace.
Yes.
And I think that's we're just so lucky that we're able to do that here. I'm really, really looking forward to the rest of our guided mindful walks that we have planned this year. We have one planned for each month in different areas of the national park. So it's really nice to explore different places and bring people out for the experience of connecting with nature in a different way. Maybe some people that haven't tried mindfulness before. So it's really great to have you helping us guide these walks, Davy. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's no problem at all. I'm really enjoying it. It's great. Yeah. I couldn't think of anything better to do on a nice day.
Lovely. Well, thanks very much for joining us today on the podcast, and we'll see you again soon.
See you soon in the mountains. Diolch yn fawr.
So my next guest on the podcast is Nik from 1085 Adventures, a bike hire company based in Beddgelert Forest. Nik, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Really well. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you very much for asking. So today we're talking about well-being, and I want to ask you, from your own experience, can you tell me a little bit about the benefits that utilising the national park as a health resource can have on a person's well-being?
Well, I think we are really fortunate to have such a beautiful place to go and explore. We can be with people, or you can be on your own in the silence and just in the forest or by the lakes. You've got the mountains, you've got everything you need for well-being around here.
Yes, we're very lucky, aren't we?
Really lucky, yeah. I think the benefits are just outweighed, and you don't have to go on a massive adventure. It's not about, ticking off the peaks. You can literally just wander from the front door of your campsite or your house and you're straight into tranquility.
Tranquility, yeah, it's one of the national park's special qualities.
Totally, yeah. And you don't need to have hours and hours either. You can, for your wellness and well-being, you just need 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, even if it's just forest bathing or sitting by the lake with a book, taking it all in. Even in the rain is the best, because the sounds and just being silent and mindful.
Yeah, taking some time out for yourself, for your mental health and your physical health is really important, isn't it?
Really important, yeah.
So, Nik, you look after the Trumper for us here. The Trumper, by the way, it's a off-road mobility scooter.
Yeah.
and we've been getting a lot of bookings recently. It's become quite popular, hasn't it?
It's really, really popular. So we're really fortunate here in Bethgelert Forest to have multi-user paths. So they're walking, horsing, cycling, and adaptive paths really to get out and about on the Trumper. And the stories we get from the Trumper are just fantastic. You know, it's opening up a whole world for people. So you may just have your normal wheelchair, but it kind of restricts you, where the Trumper allows you to go off and explore, and the battery lasts the full day. I mean, they're great fun as well, and we've had people where they've been on, their whole families have been out. We had a great event last year, just post-lockdown, where a group of friends were raising money for a friend of theirs who's got MS quite early on in his age, and he wanted to be part of their training programme of doing the 3 peaks. So they went out, there must have been 30 of them as a group that just went wandering around the forest, and he got to join in with the Trumper as well, which was brilliant. So we have people who've lost mobility, or even if you just had like a hip operation, or you're injured and you just need the benefits of some fresh air, mindfulness in the forest, perfect.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really important that Snowdonia National Park promotes access for all, and the Trumper is just a fantastic way for people to get out there and do so.
Yeah, and it's free of charge as well, and anyone can come and use the Trumper at any point. You don't have to be a blue badge holder, you don't have to have a recognised disability to come and use it either. So even if you're just feeling a bit unsteady on your feet, but you want to get out and about and want to get that little bit further, or just take the pressure of having to walk, you know, with Snowdonia it's not flat, so the Trumper really does help. And and to see people come back and smile. So we've had a lady recently who, due to COVID, actually hadn't been outside in the outdoors for over 3 years. Now, to me, that is absolutely mind-boggling, that you haven't been able to just, you know, hear the sound of the river or the trees, and you've been, you know, in a flat or a house for that amount of time, unable to get out. And the smile on her face when she got back, she said it was like she'd been recharged for another 3 years of indoors. But she's now actually raising money to buy her own Trumper so she can get out exploring more.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
being out in nature really can recharge you, can't it?
Really recharge. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you quite a personal question now, as you know, well, bringing it back to the theme of this podcast, which is wellness. So how do you prioritise your wellness, Nik?
It's really important to me, and especially over the last couple of years, to make sure that I take time, and I'm really into kind of the mindfulness. And like I said at the beginning, it's not about spending hours and hours doing something, it's those short breaks, whether it be making a coffee, but just doing it mindfully, taking the time, preparing the coffee, and actually sitting down and just taking a moment, or 5 or 10. You know, it can be out on the bike is really important for my wellness, and just, you know, and actually I love it when it's raining and it's, you know, you've got all the elements that come through, and we get that here in Snowdonia. We get every season in one day, so it's perfect for wellness. A bit of wild swimming as well, or just swimming in lakes. It doesn't have to be wild, any of those things. But for me, it's not making it a chore. It has to just be that 10 minutes or that half an hour is more than enough to then go back with a clear head. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nik.
No, it's been great.
Great. Well, I'll see you again soon.
Yes, we will.
And just in terms of the Trumper booking again, if anyone does want to book on to the Trumper, they can do so either through the 1085 Adventures website or through the Snowdonia National Park website. And there's a list of many access for all routes that are Trumper friendly, so have a look on there and get in touch if you'd like to book. So I'd like to introduce my final guest for this month's podcast, Abbie Edwards, the new team lead for the Carneddau Landscape Partnership Project. Hello, Abbie, how are you?
Hiya, Samai, I'm very good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm very good. So how are things going in the new role?
amazing. It's a very steep learning curve. I feel like I've definitely gone in at the deep end. Still getting used to working in an office full time. In my previous role as a ranger, it was quite nice being out so much. So I find myself looking out the window quite a lot towards the mountains. But yeah, no, I'm loving it. I'm working closer than ever. Uh, with the Canedau Landscape Partnership and with all of our partners as well. So it's really exciting to see how busy the scheme is and how much is going on, really.
Brilliant. That sounds really exciting, Abby. So yeah, the Carnivai, I think feels like a very peaceful, tranquil place to visit. How do you say the Carnivai Landscape Partnership project promotes well-being?
Well, I think I always have to start with talking about the Canedau as, like you say, a tranquil but a wild place as well. The Canedau, it is a huge mountain range, one of the biggest continuous areas of uplands south of Scotland, and depending where you go in the Canada, you can have completely different experiences. So you can either enjoy being in the lowlands, sort of in the valleys, or walking through meadows and being near riversides and just listening to all the different sounds. Being in such a quiet place, you can be in woodlands and listening to the bird life, and or sort of you can also be high up in the mountains and you can be full of adrenaline and doing some scrambling or climbing routes. So depending where you are on the Canada, you'll get a completely different experience. And of course, when the weather turns and it might be incredibly windy up on the tops of some of the higher summits, it really is an awe-inspiring place, and that feeling of awe, really, especially when you're higher up on the Canada, it's like nothing else, and it really is grounding. It puts you in perspective, and it makes you feel so small against the forces of nature, and really imagining how sort of the geological forces of how the Canada came to exist, and imagining the glaciers carving through the mountains as well. It's such a amazing place to be, and of course, as part of the Canada Landscape Partnership, we've got so many different projects. It's really difficult not to find something that you're interested in. So whether that's that you're more interested in nature and the natural environment, and we've got many projects that focus on particularly rare birds in the area, like the chough, or in Welsh, y frân gwisgoch, and the twite as well. In some of the lower valleys called Llunos y Mynydd. We've also got more archaeological and cultural heritage based projects, so looking at the history of the Canedau and the historical farming practices and some of the archaeology going all the way back to the Neolithic. Again, it comes back to this sort of feeling of awe in the mountains, of really where we've come from and the history behind how the land has been used and how people have shaped the landscape over thousands of years. And so sort of tying that back into well-being, it really is incredible to start thinking about sort of how small you really are in comparison to the forces of nature, and really time and how we've helped shaped and evolved with the landscape.
Oh, that sounds amazing. It sounds like such a special place, a place where you can get away from it all and really connect with nature. Do you think that nature connectedness is linked to pro-environmental behaviour, Abby?
Definitely. I think the more time you spend outside, I think the more you come to appreciate and care about. I know myself, if I'm walking in the woodlands, and I particularly like flowers because they don't tend to fly off like birds, and they're not like insects that scurry away. So botany is something that I'm particularly interested in, just because I can study it and I don't have to worry about it scurrying away. But yeah, and sort of coming across these and really having that sense of curiosity and like, okay, why do these what's important here. I don't want to see these disappear, and hearing sort of the calls and the sounds of rarer bird life, and seeing that all of the diversity and how you've got this symbiotic relationship and ecosystems functioning, and how they change depending on where you are. And I think connecting with nature and being out in nature, really, you're not going to protect something you don't care about, and I think you're not going to care about something if you haven't experienced it. So it really is by having those moments and connecting with nature. It's really hard not to sound too I don't know, sort of quite hippie-ish about it all, but it really, there's so much truth in spending time in nature, and really, because we are nature. I mean, we might we're, the most intelligent species, and we might think that we're separate from nature, but we're really not. And I think it's central to grounding yourself, the fact that you can spend time in nature and away from the artificial built lives that we often spend most of our time in, being outdoors, feeling the wind on your face, putting your hands or feet in the river, and really just not really having to think much, but just feeling in nature, and that your body is in a natural environment. And to me, that's what I love. I can completely switch off, and you're just thinking about that present moment. If you've got your feet wet, the fact that you're stuck in a bog, or whether you're stuck in the rain. I mean, even though I hate sort of drying on my clothes, and my trainers take days to dry if I've been stuck out in the mountains, it's such an incredible feeling in that moment of just being caught out in the rain. I love it. I think we should all get caught out in the rain a bit more.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Abbie. And just going back to the theme for this week, I'm asking all the guests quite a personal question. So everyone has their own approach to what wellness means to them. So how do you prioritise your wellness?
That's a very good question. I think, especially as I'm starting a new job, I think it's really important to remind myself of maintaining that balance between having that drive and that interest to wanting, because I love what I do. I really do. It's really hard to separate work and sort of switch off outside, because I love it so much. I could do it all the time, but I know working all the time is not good for anyone. And so what I really like to do is go for a walk, and switch all of my notifications off on my phone, and just, even if it's just for a few hours, just for a morning or an afternoon. I think your sense of time really changes when you haven't got your phone pinging, or you're not talking to anyone either. And I feel like it feels like time sort of slows down a little bit, and that perception sort of isn't really there, unless you just see the sun going up or down, really. But I think for me, it's all about feeling the wind on my face, going for a dip in the river or something, and that really recalibrates my emotions, I think. And I think wellness, it all comes down to how you're feeling and being able to regulate your emotions, and then just making sure that you have that understanding and that self-awareness of how you're feeling, and being able to recognize, right, okay, I need a break now, and that's okay. And quick dip in the river, or having some time just going for a walk in the woods and looking for some mushrooms, or doing some foraging. Or I love September time, when we've got so many berries out, and doing a bit of foraging is sort of when autumn comes as well. I do like that feeling of sort of hunkering down and closing in with the shorter days. But yeah, so wellness is really about recalibrating and really recognizing when I need to take a break, which is quite hard when you love what you do. But yeah, I think that's it.
Some really nice tips there as well. Thank you, Abbie. It's been a really interesting discussion. So thank you very much for being our guest, and look forward to go out for a walk with you soon.
Yes, definitely. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thanks, Etta.
Thank you. So I'd like to say a massive thank you to our guests for this episode, Davy, Nik and Abbie. It's been a pleasure to talk to them about all things wellness. For your information, we have a series of wellness activities happening every month. There are Wellness Wednesdays events, and you can find information for these on the National Park website. And remember to follow us on all the social media platforms. Thank you very much for listening.